Hello folks, I am the Old Sergeant. You've heard a lot of talk recently about retired general officers being against President Trump over the possible use of the Insurrection Act to defend American cities and homes against the rioters. I need to talk to you a little bit about these generals. The active duty military does its best to stay apolitical. That's one of the hallmarks of our republic, as opposed to other nations, that our military stays out of it. A general or admiral can give their advice to the president, and the president, with advice from other people, will make a decision, give orders to the general, and the general is to go out and execute the order. If the general is strongly against the order, to the point that he doesn't feel he can carry it out properly, he has the option to resign. A famous situation happened in the Korean War where General Douglas MacArthur had opinions different than the president on how they wanted to execute and the strategy to be used in the Korean War. MacArthur was very public about it. That is why Truman had no choice but to fire the general. Several events have shaped the current situation of retired generals commenting on politics. First, there was a major purge of war-fighting generals and senior officers that would soon become generals during the Obama administration. If you were a conservative, if you were a real general, you were asked to retire. The political generals, the leftist generals, stayed. So all we had at the beginning of the president's term, of President Trump's term, are leftist generals. Maybe during the 3 years he's been there, close to 4 years he's been there, there may be a few conservative generals that made it up through the ranks without being taken out by the liberal generals. This means that we have a lot of generals that are leftists, that are Marxists. The retired leftist generals are out there bad-mouthing the president because they're political. Secondly, there's a lot of generals that were upset about President Trump's pullback of our military. The getting rid of these endless wars and stop fighting these endless wars and all the body bags, the coffins that are being brought back for nothing. All this is a drain on our people and the treasury of the country. But the generals thought that we were abandoning an ally, the Syrian Kurds. They don't seem to understand that there's a difference between the Syrian Kurds and the Iranian Kurds. The Iranian Kurds are truly our ally. We work closely with them. The Syrian Kurds are nothing more than ISIS with a different name. Another consideration is if we have continuous wars, then the generals get lucrative positions on the boards of defense contractors, especially the defense contractors that they worked hard to make sure that they got contracts. It's a payback. Thank you, General, for these contracts. Now you get paid a lot being on our board. The military in general is reluctant to get involved with actions within the country, even going after these rioters. it's sort of ingrained in us military that we don't go after our own. It's not in us to do. So, of course, the general military is understandable that they don't want to have to go against Americans because of the Insurrection Act. But they understand, they know what's going on, and they'll do their duty. Even though you have all these generals out there, all the leftist generals, telling them that if they follow the president's orders to crack down and stop the rioting, that they're going against their oath. On the contrary, they are going with their oath. But you can see what these leftist generals are trying to do. They're trying to split the military, make them very uncertain as what is the right and correct thing to do. And that's why you hear a lot of the leftist generals spouting all the nonsense they can come up with to affect the hearts and minds of the men and women that would have to actually physically go out and stop the rioters. The media, of course, is only going to listen to the leftist generals. The patriotic generals, the conservative generals, they don't want to hear from. They could care less about their opinions. It's against their narrative of turning the country communist. At the beginning of President Trump's presidency, he surrounded himself with generals. He thought, I have patriotic men and women that are effective and strong leaders, otherwise they wouldn't have raised in the ranks, in the general ranks. That's what he thought he was getting. It was a major mistake. He soon discovered that many of the generals he surrounded himself with were in fact Marxists. And he ended up having to fire them, which of course the media screamed about. How many generals are now working with the insurgency? The insurgency seems to be using a lot of interesting tactics with interesting equipment, like Wi-Fi jammers, so that they can jam your security system in your house, bust into your house, and take the guns and money. They've done this to very small towns where they went in, cased the place, came in with their jammers, and a lot of times these are places where people were using their pickup truck to store their weapons. They were coming in, getting the guns and money. They're doing this all over many rural areas. Who is organizing? Who are the people that are providing the sophisticated equipment and these tactics? I really am worried, frightened, disappointed in who this might be. I'm the old sergeant. Stay informed, prepared, active, prayerful, and as always, stay vigilant.